Imagine waking up tomorrow and something feels off. Not wrong, just missing. Like the Wi-Fi of human motivation suddenly went down. Sex still exists, bodies still work, hormones still fire, but the pleasure? Gone. Deleted. Nature just turned off humanity's favorite feature. It's not painful, it's not awkward, it just doesn't feel good. You can eat, breathe, blink, and scroll endlessly through TikTok, but when it comes to reproduction, it's like chewing cardboard. So what happens to civilization when nature removes its best incentive program? Let's find out. The first week, the global confusion. The first few days would be pure chaos, not because anyone's dying, but because everyone's confused. Doctors would assume it's a neurological pandemic. CNN would call it the libido collapse. Influencers would post videos like, if you also don't feel anything, like at all, smash that like button. Dating apps would crash overnight, not from traffic, but because nobody's swiping anymore. Tinder would release a statement like, we're pivoting to friendship. Pornhub's stock would nosedive harder than crypto after a bad tweet. Governments would get involved because when the birth rate graph looks like a ski slope, even the politicians stop pretending. The World Health Organization would call emergency meetings. Scientists would examine hormones, neural receptors, and evolutionary code, trying to figure out how an entire species lost its biological spark. At first, they'd think it's psychological, a collective mental burnout. But tests would show dopamine's still there, serotonin's fine, and oxytocin is doing its best. The wiring's intact. The reward system just doesn't care anymore. Basically, your brain's like, look, I know this was supposed to be fun, but honestly, I'm just not feeling it. The first year, the emotional fallout. Within months, the social ripple effects would hit hard. Relationships would start collapsing, not from anger, but from emptiness. Couples would go through the motions, waiting for the spark to return. It wouldn't. Therapists would become the busiest people on the planet. They'd host support groups with names like Intimacy Anonymous. Someone would invent pleasure placebo therapy, promising to reawaken your inner passion using breathing exercises and crystals. It would fail miserably, but the Instagram ads would look great. Romantic gestures would lose their punch. Chocolate, roses, candlelight, all pointless when your brain's reward center responds with a polite shrug. Some couples would stay together out of loyalty or nostalgia. Others would split because without pleasure, love feels like a performance review. Marriage rates would plummet. And not for lack of interest, just for lack of interest. People would still crave emotional connection, but without the hormonal bonding from intimacy, human relationships would shift. Friends would replace lovers. Communities would start valuing companionship over romance. Platonic soulmates would become a serious legal category. In short, Tinder dies, but book clubs thrive. Year 5. The fertility collapse. 5 years in, the real problem hits: reproduction. Sex, once powered by pleasure, is now powered by obligation. And let's be honest, humans are not great at doing things that feel like chores. Governments would scramble to create incentives. You'd get tax breaks for reproduction, national campaigns would beg people to do it for humanity. There'd be ads showing happy families under the slogan, "Repopulation is everyone's duty." Doctors would set up clinical reproduction centers where conception is handled with the precision of an oil change. Fertility treatments would become routine, not because people can't have kids, but because they don't want to bother. Birth rates would collapse faster than an influencer's apology tour. Within a generation, populations would start shrinking at a pace that terrifies economists. Pension systems fail, labor forces vanish, and politicians suddenly remember how biology works. A new profession emerges: reproductive volunteers. These are people who agree to help sustain the population for money, status, or out of sheer guilt. They're treated like heroes, national symbols of selfless reproduction. They'll appear on talk shows. I don't enjoy it, but someone has to keep civilization alive. And honestly, they'd mean it. Year 10. The dopamine substitutes. Humans can't survive without reward. If sex stops being rewarding, we'll find something else that is, and probably get addicted to it. In this world, the new pleasure center is technology. People start relying on brain-stimulating implants, VR experiences, and dopamine patches that deliver synthetic satisfaction. You'd see people sitting in cafes with tiny headsets, eyes glazed over, giggling at digital hallucinations only they can see. It's not joy, it's simulation, the digital version of pretend everything's fine. Governments would try to regulate it, but they'd also use it. Pleasure tech becomes the new political tool. State-run joy centers offer free dopamine sessions to keep citizens content enough to function. Meanwhile, conspiracy theorists would emerge. They took away our natural pleasure so they could sell it back to us in subscription form. And honestly, that theory might be true. The irony is beautiful. Humanity loses pleasure, invents artificial pleasure, and then becomes addicted to it. We replace romance with reward systems, connection with convenience, and end up more alone than ever, but too stimulated to notice. Year 50. Evolution loses interest. By now, the population is a fraction of what it was. The last generation raised with memories of real pleasure is gone. Humans still exist, but reproduction now is a sterile process handled in labs. The word sex becomes archaic, a historical term like telegraph or blockbuster rental. Evolution, stripped of its feedback loop, stops playing favorites. There's no incentive for beauty, charisma, or mating behavior. We stop evolving toward attraction and start evolving toward efficiency. Future humans become emotionless, practical, minimalistic, a species optimized for function, not feeling. Imagine gray, quiet cities where people work, eat, and rest with clockwork precision. No drama, no romance, no chaos. Just calm productivity and a permanent sense of meh. It's the utopia no one wanted, paradise by emotional default. The final irony. At some point, an AI historian will look back and realize the thing that made us human wasn't intelligence or language or opposable thumbs. It was that tiny chemical kick of pleasure, the spark that made survival feel worth it. Without it, we didn't die, we just forgot why we wanted to live. Because pleasure wasn't the distraction, it was the reason. If sex never brought pleasure, civilization wouldn't end overnight, it would fade. Slowly, quietly, like music turned down until you forget it was ever playing. We'd still eat, sleep, and work, but we'd stop dreaming, creating, connecting. Because pleasure isn't a luxury, it's the universe's way of saying, yes, keep going. Without it, we'd be logical, efficient, and completely lost. So remember this, it's not weakness, it's biology. It's the spark that keeps the species alive, and the reason you're even here to question it. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Like, share, and subscribe to see them.